ARG reporting live. This just in. An urgent report from the Department of Homeland Security. A reported additional 15.78% of electronic devices have been rendered inoperable, and nearly all major electronic communication providers have halted user activity. It is advised you avoid internet usage until further notice.
A strange noise begins to ring in your ears, but with the world blanketed in a dense fog, it's hard to find the source of the sound. And yet, in the midst of the sensory onslaught, you catch a glimpse of something that should not be there. Something alive. That was a glamorous description of this video, uploaded on November 23rd, 2024. On the surface, it just looks like a mod made to trick you into thinking the game is corrupted, or something along those lines. But if we look deeper, we find the possibility of a man-made computer supervirus with global destructive capabilities stronger than the most powerful solar flare in recorded human history. This video is called Tentacles for obvious reasons, and it's the 5th installation in a series of videos uploaded to the channel SirBubble0349. No info is given on the channel in the About section. However, on the first video there's a small bit of information in the description. I'm uploading some videos from an old PC I salvaged from 2015. Feel free to take a look and see if you can make more sense of whatever was going on than I can. So these videos are from 2015, which was 10 years ago. Considering the videos were salvaged, I think it's safe to assume that the computer didn't work anymore. But given how old it was, that makes sense. However, you'll soon come to see that it was likely something more sinister. But like a book, if we start in the middle, we'll just end up confused. So let's go back to the beginning at Chapter 1. The first video on the channel is called Black Chickens, and you'll see why pretty soon. The version being played in this video and the future videos is 1.6.4, which was released on September 19th, 2013, which is a few years behind the 2015 date we were given, but not so much that it's weird. The video is pretty stereotypical for a random Minecraft series on YouTube in 2015. The recording starts in the menu, they make a world, and off we go. Nothing much happens until around the 3.5 minute mark, when there's a sudden lag spike and the video quality severely degrades, seemingly for no reason. After that, they check the F3 menu to see if anything is wrong and see nothing. But that's because the anomaly was only on screen for a single frame. His used memory is listed as null and his memory usage is over 2 billion megabytes. This is most likely an error though, unless this random 2015 Minecraft player is running 1.6 on a supercomputer with 2,000 terabytes of memory, but I highly doubt that. Some of you likely noticed this right away. The number, 2,174,483,647. That's the 32-bit integer limit, which is the negative and positive halves of 32 squared. With that explanation out of the way, the fact that this specifically is the 32-bit integer limit makes me think that this is simply a visual error. However, the lag spike combined with this implies that something is hogging resources. Also, keep that possibility in mind, as it becomes a major part of our theory later. Aside from the lag spike, we don't see anything else out of the ordinary until near the end of the video, when we see the reason for the title walking around. Black chickens dotting the landscape. They seem to behave the same as normal chickens. However, once SirBubble gets close to one, it becomes pretty clear that they most certainly aren't normal. They make strange noises with every step and cluck. It sounds like garbage noise, but before Bubble can investigate further, he makes the mistake of killing one, which instantly crashes his computer and causes the video to end. This noise that the chickens were making is interesting. At first, when listening to it, it sounds like it's just random noises. But it's not random, it's a spectrogram, which is a way that images are translated into noise, and when visualized, this sound is the texture file for chickens. The texture of the chickens is obviously black, but that's kind of weird. If the texture was just gone, it should be a checkered black and pink pattern, not just pure black. Which means that for some reason the chicken texture was turned into a noise, and something else replaced the chicken texture. Right now that may not make sense, but keep these details in mind as they're significantly more important than you might think. But other than the chickens and the lag spike, this video doesn't have any anomalies. So let's move on to the second video. Bubble logs back into the world and starts where he left off before, with the chicken's loot directly in front of him. He finds that the chickens are still here, but given what happened last time, he opts not to interact with them. And he asks the viewers in chat, do you guys know why the chickens are black? Herobrine? Please tell me how to fix this in the comments, guys. So it seems that he just thinks it's a game bug, or like most people in 2015, they blame every weird thing they see in the game on Herobrine. Not much else happens in this video specifically. However, around the 5.5 minute mark, we see another black mob, this time a pig. But Bubbles doesn't notice and moves on, so we don't get any information outside of the fact that it looks like the chicken. After that, he simply plays as usual for a while and then leaves. So outside of the introduction of an additional black mob, this video hasn't given us anything new. The black pig is still very important, as it's a clear implication that whatever is going on in this world is spreading. First to chickens and now to pigs. It might seem alright for now, but soon you'll see that isn't the case. The title of the third video on the channel is Black Pigs. The video starts as per usual. Bubble logs into his world and continues where he left off last time. He gets some wood, builds some more, business as usual. But at around 5.5 minutes in, we finally get a closer look at the pigs from the last video. They're just like the chickens, behaving as they should, but visually and audibly being incredibly weird. Like the chickens, their skin is completely black, and the sounds they make are spectrograms of their original texture file. Because Bubbles has already seen this before, he isn't very fazed by it and just moves on, likely waiting for a commenter on his videos to help him out eventually. However, at around 7.5 minutes in, there's another anomaly. Take a look down this cave system. It seems dark. Darker than an unlit cave should be. We can even see stone at the end, and yet whatever's on the walls is darker than that. There's also a faintly audible static noise, similar to the pigs and sheep. Unfortunately, because of how quiet it is and how many other sounds are being played at the same time, it's hard to say what the noise in a spectrogram is supposed to be, but it's certainly meant to be something. But with all of these things happening in one place, I assume that these are meant to be corrupted blocks. But because caves are naturally dark, Bubbles once again fails to notice anything other than the already hard to hear sound. But what is it? Well, right now it's hard to say, but soon it'll make itself very clear. Aside from the cave, Bubbles doesn't find anything strange that we've not already seen. He manages to make his way out of the cave and then back home, where he uses some of the stuff he mined to make tools and then ends the video. This video wasn't incredibly eventful. However, the virus causing these issues isn't just infecting mobs, but also blocks, and it seems to be spreading. However, the next video will put that theory to the test. This video is called Restarting, for reasons that'll make sense pretty soon. The video starts normally, but right away things are different, in a good way. We can see mobs outside of Bubbles' window and they're all normal. He sees this too and goes outside to take a look, and tells us that he did this. He says he googled how to fix the mobs, but it didn't seem to work at first, but now it has. So I guess he attempted to fix the glitched mobs at some point and still encountered them after that, but now for some reason they've been fixed. That's great, but it seems odd that there would be a buffer time between him fixing the glitches and the glitches actually going away. That kind of thing should be instant, and yet it's not. Keep that in mind, as it'll be a crucial detail later on. For now, let's focus on the events of the video. After acknowledging the fact that he managed to fix everything, Bubble plays the game normally for a while, and decides to go exploring, crafting a boat and heading off. He goes around gathering new resources, but then he hears a familiar yet horrible noise. He struggles to find the source. The mobs aren't bugged and nothing looks wrong. But as he approaches a nearby ravine, he finds the source. An enormous black mass, like the one from the cave before. He tries to make his way down slowly but falls in, and understandably decides to leave the game. But upon doing so, another strange noise plays. After that, he explains he wants to restart the world in an attempt to get the black stuff to go away. Before we get into his second world, let's unravel the mess of events that just ended his first one. First off, the sound. The sound at the end that the black mass was making is the same sound that we heard before, just a lot louder. There's still background noise, but not enough to drown out the image in a spectrogram. If we visualize it, this is what we get. For the three of you who don't know, this is a plague doctor. They treated victims of the bubonic plague during the 17th century. This image specifically is one of the most well-known depictions of a plague doctor. On its own, it's pretty strange for this to be in Bubbles' game. However, it clearly implies that a human is behind this, and it's not just a game corruption or glitch. But if that's the case, why did the mobs go back to normal? It's hard to say just yet, but keep it in mind for now, as it's a major piece of our final theory. On top of that, when he leaves the game, another strange sound plays. If we open it in a spectrogram, it appears to be the file path to Minecraft. I assume that this is meant to imply that the virus is accessing more files, or possibly that it's just accessing those files specifically at the time he was recording. It's hard to say, but based on what we've seen so far, it's clear that whatever this virus or corruption is communicates through spectrograms. There's still a lot of questions left to answer, but for now, let's finish the video. Bubble decides to make a new world to try and get rid of everything that was in the last one, and everything seems fine. All of the mobs are still normal, but he does get scared for a second, thinking that this sheep stuck in a block is glitched, when in reality it's just dark because it's buried in sand. After that, he gets back to making progress. However, there's one odd detail he fails to notice. The sky is oddly dark, with no clouds, and the sun seems darker than normal, but he never really notices, and after a while just ends the video. So what's going on? The virus itself seems to be flip-flopping between infecting the world and leaving it alone. First infecting mobs, blocks, and uninfecting mobs, and then doing nothing but making the sky dark? At first glance, that doesn't make any sense. But that's only if we think of the virus as having a starting point, an end goal, and a linear path to get there. What if the virus is capable of changing its plan, rerouting its path to get to this unknown goal? First, Bubble attacks the black chickens, so the virus crashes the game. Then it infects the pigs to see what happens, and Bubbles doesn't notice. However, on the third video when he does, it's safe to assume that he then attempted to remove the virus based on what he tells us. And because of that, the virus deliberately undid its own damage to the mobs to make Bubbles stop trying to get rid of it. If this is the case, this isn't just any virus. It's capable of learning and adapting to survive on an infected device. Also, Bubbles says that he Googled how to fix it. So either the virus has access to other applications like Google, or it was able to detect him looking through Minecraft's game files. Either way, this virus is clearly pretty advanced. However, what its end goal is, or how long it'll take to get there, is hard to say. But keep all of these things in mind, as they're very important to understanding that in the future. This video is called Tentacles, for reasons you've already seen. Nothing is weird until around 1 minute in, when Bubbles clearly isn't paying attention, as for a brief moment we can see a twisting black mass on the left side of the screen. While he didn't see it, he does hear it, and quickly sees the source of the noise. He then simply says, "It's back." He walks up to it and looks around before saying, "I know this is scary, but I just want to see, okay?" After that, he goes into the water where it seems to be coming from, but because the blocks are black, it's impossible to see where he's going. And after a while, he breaks a block. But just like killing the chicken in the first video, it simply crashes the game and ends the recording. Now, quite a lot happened here in not a lot of time, so let's break it down really quick. This is still the same audio as before, the spectrogram plague doctor image. However, the black structure itself is slightly different. The tentacles aren't actually unique to here though. There were protrusions in the previous video's black mass as well. However, because it was wedged between two walls, it was kind of hard to see. So why does the virus keep doing this? Well, I'll lay out what I thought when I was watching this. My theory is that these aren't tentacles, at least not deliberate ones. In the video, we can see the black blocks touching this tree, and as a result, the entire thing turned black, which means that it's turning blocks it touches into weird corrupted black versions of themselves. So my guess is that these black blocks are just air that got corrupted. If the corrupted blocks infect nearby blocks like a disease, then that would explain why they seem to be going in lines. It also seems that the corruption starts underground, first in a small cave, then in a ravine, and now underwater. However, because it got above ground, it's now spreading outwards and into the air. But even if that's the case, what is this trying to accomplish? If it's a virus on Bubble's computer, is it intentionally messing with him or what? Why hasn't it done anything other than make his game look weird? For now, we don't know. But despite the next video shedding light on some of these questions, it also throws us into the dark. Video 6 is called Strange Biome, and you'll see why pretty quick. Bubble says he reinstalled the game, presumably to get rid of the bug. However, it's far too late for that. At 40 seconds into the video, he creates a new world, and gets sent straight to an infinite void. There's close to no light, every texture is black, and there are no sounds aside from the looping garbage noise similar to what we heard before. He wanders the desolate landscape for a while before giving up, but when he leaves, more noise similar to the previous video starts to play rapidly. Last time it was the file path for Minecraft. This time, the file path to System32, the most vital part of the Windows operating system. If the virus is targeting this, then Bubbles needs to do something soon. He reassures us he will before ending the video, saying this: "I don't know what's going on. I'll look into it later. I'll fix it and be back tomorrow. However, tomorrow is too late. After that, he ends the video. The sound in this video is different than before. Instead of a plague doctor, it's the plague itself. Clearly, this was an intentional design to leave some darker implication. This virus isn't just here to cause damage. It's here to torment the people it's causing damage to in the process. The sound also seems to be a heartbeat when sped up slightly, so maybe this is supposed to be the heart of the virus itself, its final form, now that it has control of the entire world. By this point, I had a good idea of what was going on. I don't think this virus is infecting mobs and blocks just because it can. The colors and sounds seem intentionally off-putting, a human attempt to add a layer of meaning to their virus. However, the corruptions in the world seem different. Remember before when the storage spiked to the limit? The virus is using the textures in game storage to make room for itself, replacing the textures in sound with its own files to make space for its own machinations, spreading its mind throughout the game so it can be capable of more complex actions. The virus hogging room for itself during gameplay is likely why the game suddenly lagged out right here. My bet is that this is some kind of machine learning, and the virus specifically replaces existing files so that, at a glance, no storage numbers or files seem wrong. That way it draws as little attention to itself as possible. And if it does get attention, it deliberately undoes its own work so that it seems to have been dealt with. But we've yet to see the final piece of the puzzle, which comes in the next video. This video starts on the desktop, where Bubble tells us that he thinks he fixed it for real this time, and he's going to try again. He goes to create a new world, but after creation, once again, the world is dark. But unlike the last world, there isn't even a semblance of any form or order. It's just an endless void with one sound being played on loop. Audibly, it's similar to the others. However, when we put it into a spectrogram, it's not a heartbeat or a plague doctor. It's just a bird. The sound itself may also be the call of a crow, but it's so distorted that it's hard to say. Take a listen to this comparison and tell me what you think in the comments. The video continues with Bubble simply existing in the void. He makes the very reasonable choice to leave, but when he does, the menu has been corrupted as well, playing the same heartbeat noise from the previous video. When he tabs out, command prompt opens, sends him commands, and the video ends. It's hard to see what was sent in the video as it only lasts a few frames and YouTube is annoying, so you can't even pause the video without the video ending itself, but you can download the video to see what happens during the final frames. This is what the virus's final actions were. First, it set up a connection to smtp-emailserver.com, then got user details from there, presumably hacking into Bubble's email. After that, it sent copies to other emails, 6 in total. After that, it fried the system entirely, presumably beyond repair, as implied by the description of the first video. So what is this doing exactly? Well, it seems to be finding an email, hacking it, and sending emails from that one to other contacts. But what's it sending? Well, based on what we've seen so far, itself. I'm not good at stuff like this, so if you are, feel free to tell me all of the things wrong with this in the comments. But as far as my untrained eye can tell, that seems to be what's happening. It sends copies of itself to other emails, hoping that it'll infect other computers and repeat the process again. Just like the plague, it spreads victim to victim. Once it sent copies of itself to other emails, it finishes off Bubble's computer, as implied by this final string of commands. So what happens now? Well, the virus's goal is obviously to spread, and if it can infect programs other than Minecraft, which is the most likely scenario, it has the possibility to cause global damage. If it's capable of learning as we've seen, it'll only get better and better at rendering devices worthless. If left unchecked, it could wipe out all modern technology. But obviously at some point it failed. If there was a global crisis because of a machine learning virus, I don't think Bubble's description would be so nonchalant, and he wouldn't have even had a device to upload these videos from. It's safe to assume that the virus failed. It may have spread a bit, but at some point it either failed to spread properly or someone managed to get rid of it. It's clear that this was a human attempt at burning technological infrastructure to the ground. If this virus was simply meant to cause damage, there's no reason to jump through hoops and make cryptic references to the bubonic plague, and just make the virus a generally imposing and unsettling experience to deal with. It's not just utilitarian. In Bubble's world, it started at the center in a small cave without him noticing until it had infected some chickens, then pigs, and then retreated back into the world to hide itself. It learned what Bubble acted like. It adapted to his movement, and then in the end, it managed to outmaneuver him and destroy his computer. Although the attempt at destruction was ill-fated, there is a growing sentiment that the advance of modern technology is doing more bad for humanity than good. Although there may be some validity to the thought, complete destruction of all technological infrastructure is definitely not the answer. But in the year 2015, one person, maybe a group, decided that it was time to burn it all down, engineering a bubonic plague of the technological era.